Your first day on the job is going to be a whirl of activity. You're going to be meeting people, figuring out which desk is yours, how to work the phone, how to work the computer, where you're going to lunch. Okay, let's slow down a bit. Let's focus on the people you're going to be working closely with. You're going to be assigned to a department, and organizationally, here's what it looks like. You're looking at something called an organization chart, or an org chart for short. Most successful companies and nonprofits are organized in a hierarchy that can be shown on a chart like this. A department may be a handful of people, or it may have dozens, but at the top is a department head, better known as the boss. His or her assistant, followed by the employees, better known as staff. That's you. No matter what your duties, you're one of the staff, and you will report to someone specific in the organization who is responsible for making you understand what's expected and that you have the right resources to get the job done correctly. But that doesn't mean it's a one-way street. You have a responsibility to regularly communicate to that person to make sure you understand his or her expectations and keep them aware of how you're doing. Don't be nervous about this. Focus on getting your first assignments right, so you can move up to more interesting ones. You'll not only have more fun on the job, you'll get a chance to meet a wide range of people. Keep in mind that anyone you meet might be in a position to help you get hired someday. Okay, now we've covered your own department where you'll start your first day. Now let's talk bigger picture. No department is an island. It operates in the context of a whole organization. That's why it's important to know how any organization operates from the top down. Reporting relationships serve as the primary means of communication throughout organizations. If the senior management team outlines a new business strategy, your role in that strategy will be communicated to you through your immediate supervisor. What might that look like? Let's take a look at a top-level organizational chart. You'll hear this referred to as a C-suite chart, because so many top officials within organizations that have titles that begin with the word chief. These charts tend to look like a pyramid with the fewest individuals with the most power at the top and the greatest number of people with less responsibility at the bottom. Your level within the organization, therefore, will have a lot to do with how much you get paid, how much responsibility you have, and how much decision-making authority you have. Yet, with all those C names, CEO, CFO, CTO, and we'll get to all of those in a minute, there's one name above them all, and that's the Board of Directors. Why is the Board of Directors above the senior officers of the corporation? The board has a critical function in all profit and nonprofit organizations. All senior officers report to them, and therefore their role is to be a check and balance on what decisions those managers make. How influential are they? They review all the decisions senior management makes on behalf of a company's investors or a nonprofit's beneficiaries. You'll sometimes hear directors referred to as fiduciaries and that they have a fiduciary duty. That means they have to act in an objective, unselfish, and skillful way to make sure the organization serves the ultimate beneficiary in the organization. Again, in a for-profit environment, directors have a fiduciary duty to the company's investors. In a nonprofit, they represent the beneficiaries of that organization's services. Now let's go back to the C-suite and talk a bit more about what officers do. Below the board of directors, you'll see a slot for the chairman. The chairman is the top officer of the organization. That's true for profit and nonprofit organizations. His or her job is to monitor the operations of the company and make sure the big issues get attention from the board. The chairman sets the agenda for regular board meetings and makes sure directors dig deep into specific areas of the business. For example, the chairman might ask the board to create a compensation committee that keeps a steady eye on top-level salaries. Other committees might be formed to supervise everything from finance to technology investments. What does the CEO do? Better known as the Chief Executive Officer, the CEO tends to have control of the day-to-day operations of the company, while the chairman is the conduit to the board. The president reports to the CEO and is generally deeper in the day-to-day operations of the company with regards to execution of strategy and hiring at a senior level. In a nonprofit, this officer may be known as a president or executive director. By the way, not every organization runs with separate individuals in the chairman's, CEO's, or president's slot. Some organizations decide there's enough overlap between the jobs for one individual to share 2 or all 3 of these responsibilities, and that's not necessarily a bad thing, but it depends on the organization and how well it's doing. And now to the rest of the C-suite. A CMO is a Chief Marketing Officer, typically head of all sales and marketing functions within an organization. The Chief Financial Officer, you guessed it, is the numbers person who makes sure the company's financial operations and statements are being monitored responsibly. A more recent executive title, the Chief Technology Officer, monitors all things digital, from computer hardware to an organization's entire strategy on the internet. And the Chief Operating Officer tends to work at the right hand of the President, making sure day-to-day operations are efficiently run. What does all this mean for an employee on his or her first day on the job? It's important to know which C-suite officer your department actually reports to so you can follow the organizational chart down the line to your department. Depending on how big a company or organization is and how it's structured, you'll sometimes see the organizational structure go from C-suite to vice president to directors to individual managers, down to titles like associate, coordinator, and administrator. As an employee, you may be reporting to a manager who can be at any level of this chain of reporting. The important thing is to learn how it works in your organization and what's expected of you. It's important to know who these people are, not because you're going to be spending a lot of time with them necessarily, but who knows? You might get the chance to meet them and you'll want to be ready to introduce yourself and ask some questions. This concludes our look at organizational structure. Our next series of videos will explain how the marketing department works in most organizations.